Before we finish up 1.5, I wanted to mention one of the homework problems, which is number 17 on page 126. This one asks us to find the formula for f inverse of x, give the domain of f inverse, including any restrictions inherited from f of x. So they're saying that this is f of x. This is our original. And we want to find the inverse and any restrictions that we might have to have on that. So what we can do, just not looking at anything right now, just thinking, I'll go with the format of last example is, I would go here and say, all right, first of all, switch x and y. All right, x equals square root of y minus 3. All right, once I do that, then I will look at I will try to get y by itself. So I'm going to square both sides, square this and square that. So that gives me x squared equals y minus 3. And then finally, to get y by itself, I am going to add 3 to both sides. So then I get y equals x squared plus 3. And so if we weren't thinking about domain at all, we would look at this and say, yeah, that makes sense. I flipped x and y, I solved for y. There aren't any plus minuses in there, so I'm good to go. However, this original being y equals square root of x plus 3 presents a little bit of a problem, and here's the problem. I'm gonna make a graph of this. You might want to put this on your calculator. I'm gonna put this in pencil right now just because I want to erase something. But if we do square root of x minus 3, here's what happens. This is a square root graph that goes over to the right 3 units, starts here and looks something like this. When we found y equals x squared plus 3, this is a parabola which goes up by 3, the vertex is up here, and if you graph this on your calculator, you might notice that the graph looks a little bit like this. Now here's a problem. This doesn't compute with the algebraic definition of inverses, the graphic interpretation, because if I look at these two pieces, if I flip this one over, I don't get this. Those are not compatible. So what I'm going to have to do with this new function that I've created, this inverse I've created, is I'm going to have to limit the domain so that this piece comes directly from over here, which means that I'm just going to have to take only the right-hand side of that. I don't want this part of my graph, which means I'm going to have to limit the domain on this one right here. Now if I start at this spot, this is an x value of 0, and I go up from there. So the domain that I will have to limit myself to in this case is 0 to infinity in order for the graphical interpretation to match up, in order for those two to actually be inverses of each other. If I took this entire u, what you would find is another piece down here, and then that inverse wouldn't be a function, but we don't want to work with things that aren't functions. So that's just something to be aware of when you're doing problems like number 17. There will be 1 or 2 of those in your homework.